A Balloon's Purpose, written by Livia narrated by Livia. Why does life take so long to start? Every day I sit here in my metal box with all four of my round edges hitting the top. Oh, how I want these cold gray walls to open up and let me out to experience the world. I have a mission to fulfill, I yell at the metal around me. And with the thought of accomplished dreams, I continue. And oh, how I want to go to my dream home. Balloon Utopia is waiting for me. It is the place that every balloon goes after completing their mission, and it is the place I dream about every day and every night. If you haven't already guessed, this story is about me, a balloon. Each balloon in this encampment lives in their own little metal box. It is the perfect size for all basic balloons. If you call perfect being crammed in tiny space for decades, then yes, it is perfect. The only social interactions we get as balloons is by yelling to our next door neighbor, and even then, you can hardly hear a word they say. The only thing to do here is to wait. So I sit here, waiting for something good to happen. To my surprise, I hear some hinges moving. Could they possibly be mine? I think with excitement. As I looked up, my mind is puzzled. I sense no movement, and yet I can still hear the sound of moving hinges. I can hear it within the walls of my round latex figure. These cold walls seem to struggle as it keeps its lips shut. My body shakes, waking from a dream that traps me within its embrace. The excitement I knew seemed to fade with the color in my figure. More time goes by, and I can hear other encampments being broken and its prisoner being released. My heart continues to grow jealous when I hear other balloons' sounds of pure joy, and shivers run up my back. Why are they being released while I'm sitting here in this jail cell? My hope for change has begun to fade, and I fear that I will forever be trapped in this deep, black space I reluctantly call home, never feeling the wind on my face and never seeing the beautiful blue air above my head. Just before my hopes are completely gone, a sound I'd never heard before struck me with a commanding force. Needles seemed to strike from all sides as fear enveloped me. I slowly watched as the death-gray doors above my head opened. Just as quickly as the terror came to my heart, joy filled its place. It's finally happening! My sentence was finished, and I would be introduced to a world I'd only pictured in my dreams. I pushed the walls above me as they hesitantly broke free. I rushed into the sky, screaming for joy and half-heartedly repenting for the jealousy I had once felt. My time has come to be released from this cave and finally receive my mission call. There was a voice that seemed to speak to me from inside myself, but I was too excited to listen. Now is my time. I will be free to explore the world and finally receive my calling. With even greater enthusiasm I spoke, and after I put my mark on this world, I will be escorted to Balloon Utopia where the crowd will cheer my name. A white light appeared above me, and I raced to touch its breath. The light grew until it was the only thing I could see. As color slowly came to view, my eyes sparked with overwhelming delight. The thin white tail that was attached to my body was immediately grabbed by a warm embrace. I wanted to escape, but the feeling was just so new and wonderful that I let it be. I watched with awe as the figure that had held me gently pulled me over to a large white speckled slab. As I was being tied to a cold metal rod, I remembered the metal that once surrounded me, and I needed to get free, pained with struggle. Every time I pulled, the grip got tighter and my effort was deemed useless. As I gave up the fight, my ears caught the sound of something new. It was light, fresh, and happy. Thank you so much for stopping by. Enjoy your balloon and wish your little girl a happy birthday for me. Joy filled my heart as the tight grip around the bar was loosened, and instead I was tied to the arm of the figure that my embrace was talking to. My eyes had too much to take in. So many colors were zooming past as I was guided into the open blue air above me. Oh, how I wanted to touch it and taste the freedom I had been given. My eyes watched as I was taken by my guide to a large, dark green enclosure that ran on 4 wheels. The embrace around my tail was loosened once again, and I was gently placed inside this light-colored interior room. A door was closed behind me, and as I looked up, the blue sky had escaped my view. "Wait!" I yelled. "Come back!" But no one seemed to hear me. Another door was opened and then shut. I was trapped in a box once again, but this time it was a lot bigger, and it started moving. My eyes bulged. "Let me out of here!" I pushed my head to the ceiling, but nothing happened. I could see a figure in front of me, so I wasn't completely alone. Maybe it's okay. Maybe this is all part of how I save the world, I reassured myself. Some time passed, and all my focus was turned to the figure in front of me. It twisted a round circle in front of itself, and this motion seemed to make the whole room turn. Suddenly, the room on wheels stopped moving. My heart began to race, and with excitement and fear, I began anticipating what was going to happen next. The sealed door on my right side made a weird grinding sound and opened in front of me. I recognized the figure who stood in the light, and once again in my view was the bright blue sky. I couldn't wait to complete my mission and float on up to Balloon Utopia. I was grabbed by the figure, and as I jumped out of the box, a world of color and life surrounded me once again. I can't wait to show my amazing red latex body and beautiful pearl white tail and become the hero I know I was meant to be. My thoughts were suddenly interrupted by a sticky, wet, cold touch. As I looked down, I saw a mini figure with something unrecognizable on its hand. Yuck! She's getting something icky on my precious tail. I pulled and wiggled and squirmed. With one last pull, my tail broke free from the treacherous little grasp that was holding tight to me. The many figures around me fought to catch hold of me once more, but I was too smart to let them grab me again. I caught a ride on a gladful wind and was pushed up, up, up into the air. As I continued gliding towards the beautiful blue sky, my mind began to wander. I assumed I was supposed to do something or help someone, I thought. Well, since I'm not with any figures anymore, I guess my work here is done. Now I'm off to Balloon Utopia. But just when I thought everything was going to be amazing from here on out, a sudden darkness enclosed my view. My eyes were shut as I fell towards an unknown future. Just as suddenly as I had left my original cage, I again felt the chilly walls on all sides. I was back in the prison that I had come from. "What happened?" I screamed. "Was everything a lie? Did I complete my mission or did I not?" But none of my questions were answered. A vision of excited faces accompanied by joy and laughter came to my mind's eye. My dream of arriving at Balloon Utopia deepened within my soul. Please, please, let me complete my mission. I just want to complete my mission. After some more waiting, the familiar chills ran up my back. The doors opened, and I saw the light above my head. I was being given another chance. "Thank you, thank you, thank you," I exclaimed in delight. A little voice from inside me spoke again, but again I was too distracted to hear it. "Welcome, world! Oh, how I missed you!" The same events occurred from before. The warm embrace, being tied to the small metal bar, and so on. An unknown figure with a deep, husky sound grasped my tail, and this time I was taken to a medium-sized blue room on 4 wheels. Everything started becoming a little more familiar, and I felt more comfortable in my surroundings. As the room came to a stop, a renewed excitement grew within my being. Okay, world, prepare to be amazed. As the sealed door beside me opened, the husky figure fiercely pulled my tail, attempting to get me out, but my head got stuck on a handle at the top of the room. Pressure built in my head as the large figure continued to pull on my tail. "Stop that!" I yelled, but the strain only increased. With a little more effort and hard yanking, I broke free from the room that attempted to trap me. This fiasco brought little embarrassment, but after a renewal of pride, I showed the world my beautiful, once cherished, red latex exterior. "Now it's time to complete my mission," I spoke, and then thought, if only I knew what my mission was. I could see a gigantic white building in front of me. My figure raced into the white building, dragging me through the air. I floated into a never-ending expanse of white space. As I was taken to another white, flat slab of rock, I waited to be tied onto a metal rod, but with surprise, my figure continued holding me. After speaking with another figure sitting at the flat slab of rock, I was again whisked away down a hall of white walls. We began to slow, and I was pulled into a doorway behind my figure. The frame of the door smashed into the top of my head, and pain surged through my body once again. I looked at the figure holding me and began to lecture him. "I'm not made of pure stone, you know. You can't just let me hit and smash into random edges and doors. I try to keep myself clean, but with you holding me, there's no possible way I won't pop." Frustration burned within me, but the husky figure wasn't listening. I took a deep breath and turned my attention to other matters. As I looked around the room, I noticed another figure laying on what looked like a plush white wall, sitting parallel to the floor. In the figure's arms lay the smallest figure I had ever seen. It was beautiful and precious. Oh, this must be my mission. Maybe I'm supposed to do something with this tiny figure. Maybe I'm supposed to tell it some secret knowledge that it needs to know. I sat at the top of the room and thought about what that knowledge could be. The husky figure let go of my tail and took the tiny figure into its arms. I couldn't help but think about the amazing future experience of coming home to Balloon Utopia after completing my mission. Oh, how the crowds will cheer and my name will be announced to all the world because of the heroic act that me and this tiny figure will accomplish together. My thoughts were abruptly interrupted by an unknown, angry figure entering the room. It grabbed my tail and whipped me away from my newly found mission. I was about to argue, but something about this figure quieted my response. The figure held dangerously to my tail, and I knew there was no way I'd find freedom from that hold. As the figure briskly walked down the hall, its long white coat flapped behind it. I could make out a few words as it harshly spoke under its breath. "Why don't I fire that silly receptionist? She knows that latex balloons aren't allowed in the hospital. She says she wants people to be happy, but are people happy when they get allergic reactions and die from this intoxicating balloon?" Terror filled my eyes as the figure reached inside a very small room and grabbed a pointy little piece of metal. I knew something bad was going to happen, but before I finished my thought, everything went dark. I hesitantly opened my eyes and once again found myself where I began from the start. Is it not possible to escape from this rundown house of mine? Is it not possible to complete the mission I had dreamed of? I stared at the 6 walls around me. I felt them laughing at me. as if to let me know that I'd never be given another chance at finishing what I wished to restart. Something more than anger seeped out of every fiber in my being. Was it agony? Was it distress? Was it hatred? I did not know, and I didn't think I ever would. My hope was emptied as the walls continued silently laughing. I was already given 2 chances. Luck couldn't possibly dwell with me once more. I sat there in my dusty old box, dazed and numb to everything around me. My eyes felt clouded, and I knew my chances of ever reaching Balloon Utopia had long been gone. As self-pity began to rise to the surface, I pushed it away, sitting well informed that it was all my fault. As time went by, day after day, my head slowly dropped to the very bottom of my box. I had never felt so alone and so helpless. I didn't wait anymore, because I knew there was nothing to wait for. I just sat there, listening and repeating the illusion of breath over and over again in my mind, remembering the missteps I had taken. Without warning, the gates above my head opened, but I did not go. I did not dare reach up for fear that it was all a sad dream. I sat there in silence, my eyes closed. I had ignored it in the past, but this time I listened. Your time has come to complete your mission, little one. You are just a balloon, but you can bring great joy to the people around you. You are not meant to save the world, but only one little girl who was raised with much heartache through many years of her life. You are her balloon, and you are needed at this time in your life. Stand up, go forth, and experience your mission. I will be here to give you understanding along the way. Unbelief filled my ears, but even though I wanted to continue sitting in the comfort of my grief, I slowly lifted my head. I was unsure of exactly what to do, but I knew that the only way I could find out was by rising up. The cold, crisp air around me brought new breath to my heated life. As I continued to rise up, a new outlook on life came to my experience. I knew of the mistakes I had made, but they didn't have to continue breathing down my neck. The white light and color shimmered above my head. It was an experience familiar to me, and yet it felt unknown. I was elevated by an intimate, loving hold around my tail. It was soft and comforting. I recognized this figure as the same sound of the small voice who had spoken to me inside my head. They smiled at me and filled me with warmth. Instead of tying me to the cold metal bar like before, the figure held me in their hand and exited the partially enclosed space they had once worked in. The figure took me to a small white room on 4 wheels. I heard in my head the little voice of the figure tell me that what I was looking at was called a car. I turned my focus to the figure standing beside me, and they smiled at me again. Their eyes were shaded with a vibrant green, and acceptance and healing emanated from their gaze. After the long wait in the moving car, the figure gently guided me out of the white car. They took me to a place I didn't recognize. I studied a small room with 4 brick exterior walls and a pointed top. There was a humble door and square glass on the front exterior of the room. "This is called a house," I heard the voice speak from inside my head. Together we walked into the little house that we had both observed. In the corner of the room, I saw another plush, flat board parallel to the floor, and the voice told me that this was called a bed. As I continued observing, the small voice told me about the kitchen in another corner of the room, and a little desk with a chair sitting beside it. Then my thoughts moved to another figure that was standing at the window. It looked old and worn, with wrinkles on its face and hair whiter than snow covering the top of its head. The figure of the small voice let go of my tail, and my head rested upon the ceiling of the house. He embraced the old woman with a kindness and care that I had never seen before. The figure smiled over at me and then left through the door. I watched, seeing a sadness drape over the old woman. She sat on her bed, and I noticed a small drop of water glide down her face. At first it was one, and then another, and soon each drop clung together, forming a line down the wrinkled face. As if by instinct, I slowly floated over to the old woman. I didn't know exactly what to do, but I felt that if I were nearer to her, everything would be okay. I recognized the sadness she was feeling and empathized with her. As my tail touched the old woman's hand, a forgotten memory reached my conscience. I remembered the little girl who touched my string the very first time. The memory of the woman in the hospital also flashed in my mind. A lightened knowledge came to view, and I realized that these 3 experiences were all with the same person. A flood of memories played like a film in my mind, showing me the life of this woman who sat in my presence. My mind was immediately brought back to my present state of being, and I admired this woman who sat with tears still streaming down her face. As I wrapped the string around the old woman's fingers with all my effort, I told her of the beautiful experiences she had had in her life. I expressed to her the love of all who knew her and shared with her the love I had gained in my participation in her life. I may not have enjoyed it in the past, but now I can see the bliss-lined memories. The woman's tears stopped, and she smiled up at me as if to say that she understood what I had said in her mind's eye. My experience with the old woman slowly came to an end. I had sat in the corner of her room as she went in and out of her front door. Day by day, I could feel more air fade from my latex figure, and I struggled to stay afloat. As the last bit of air exited from my being, I said goodbye to the lovely old woman and closed my eyes. When my eyes reopened, I found myself floating above the wispy clouds. As I came to one thick cloud in the air, there were 2 golden gates. It was balloon utopia. I was here. As I stepped up to the gates, they easily opened, and in front of me I saw the figure who had been my instruction. Welcome home, my little red balloon. Your mission is complete. The end. And that's the end of this story, written by Livia Lundberg and narrated by Livia Lundberg.
Hi, thanks for watching. That was my lovely wife who just performed that story. If you would like to have your own story performed and read on this channel, join our Discord. And if you'd like to support the channel, please subscribe or become a Patreon member and help us make storytelling something that's common. Something that is commonplace.